Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Does Profit First work in the land down under? That's our question today. It doesn't matter where you are and what you do for your business. The reason we're asking this question is to demonstrate the principles and framework always work. You just have to adapt them to your location and your business model. I even have a client in Europe. People get stuck on how do I make this work for me and the belief that it won't work for them. Listen in as Katie shares how many of her clients have said that, and now they take 4 to 6 weeks off every year to enjoy the summer holidays. Her clients are called Tradies. That's Australian for construction worker. Before we start, a short story about baseball and how it applies to your profit. You would not expect a left fielder to pitch in a game, and you usually don't count on the pitcher to hit home runs. Sure, they're all baseball players, but they play a certain position. The same is true of your finance team. Don't expect your tax CPA to be focused on your profitability. And don't expect your bookkeeper to help you run financial projections. Can a left fielder pitch? Sure, but they're not the best person on your team to do it. Make sure you have the right players in the right positions throughout your entire company and on your financial team. Katie Crismale-Marshall is a certified Profit First coach, bookkeeper, and small business strategist who over many years has worked with hundreds of tradies who are struggling and have supported them to turn their business around. Katie's experience also includes being the wife, daughter, sister, granddaughter, sister-in-law, and niece of tradies, so she understands firsthand what that business is like and what it does to a family. And that's why she helps them succeed. Let's meet her and learn how. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Katie Crismale-Marshall. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Okay, so as you can tell by the accent, I am from Australia. My business is called Profit First for Tradies. So for Americans, tradies are similar to your contractors. And I work specifically with that group and have done for, I've worked with tradies for my entire business, so 10 years now, and specifically using Profit First over the last we must become into my 4th year now. And I have two parts to my business. So I have a coaching business and I also have a bookkeeping business, because I found that so many of my clients would come to me and their books would be a mess. So we need to fix those to make sure that we can make sure Profit First can be have as big an impact as we know it can have for them.
I'm always amazed that most business owners' books are a mess. And it's the norm. It's not the exception.
It is. And I guess like anything, if it's not your specialty, we kind of put it on the to-do pile and we're going to get to that, and we never quite get to that. And so for me and my bookkeeping business, our team's goal is to make their bookkeeping as efficient and effective as possible. So we are very big in using apps and programs and so on to make sure we can make that as painless as possible for the client. So we make that very, very efficient, which helps the client because they're not bogged down in the day-to-day stuff, but also helps us because the bookkeeping gets done. I am also a little bit allergic to paper. I don't like clutter stuff. So as soon as we can make it more efficient, we do.
You know, it's funny. Just this morning, I texted my HVAC guy. I'm like, you haven't sent me a bill, dude. I'm like, I want you to stay in business because when the heat breaks again, I need you.
And this is so common. I find it doesn't matter what country we're in. So many of them have cash flow problems, and generally the first step to fixing that is for them to actually send an invoice. Like, we can't pay you unless we have an invoice. So again, I'm waiting for a plumber who came to fix our water heater a month ago, and I said to him right then and there, can you send me an invoice? Yeah, I'll get to it. A month later and I still haven't got an invoice.
I don't know how much to pay him.
Exactly. Well. Yeah.
How did you learn about Profit First?
So back when Mike wrote the book, my business coach at the time had suggested that we all read it. He had read it and loved the concept. So I just had my bookkeeping business back then. So I read it, went, that's a great idea. And then I put it back on the shelf and didn't do anything about it.
Welcome to the club.
While. And then I was not really enjoying my business. So my parents had their own business in the 80s and 90s. They had a small restaurant, started out 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Then we started, you'd have late night Thursday trading, Saturday, half day, full day, Sunday. They went from 5-day a week, lovely job, to 7 days a week. Super stressful, lots of health issues as a result of working too much and so on and so forth. So I swore I would never, ever work for myself. And then I ended up starting to work for myself. But then I decided that I would never be in that situation. I would never have a business that wasn't fun for me. And then I found my business wasn't fun. And so I picked Profit First back up off the shelf, read it again, went, that's amazing. And then promptly put it back down on the shelf a second time. So I think I was about 3 or 4 before I actually sort of started implementing it and stuck to it. So that would have been around probably 2016. So probably about 5 years now. Then I did it in my own business for a number of years. Saw the drastic change that it had in my business. It was fun again for me. I knew what was happening. I knew very quickly when my business wasn't doing it what it needed to do, and that allowed me to have a decision to be able to improve it before it turned into a stressful, horrible situation. And then that's when I decided that bookkeeping alone doesn't change businesses' lives as much as I wanted to. I wanted to have a bigger impact. And then so that's when I become certified. And then it's been the last 3-4 years now I've been coaching on it. And it makes every day fun and enjoyable. And it's just so great to see those clients who are like, it's not going to work. That's not going to work for me. And then we just start implementing like one step after the next step. And then you get those emails and those messages saying, I thought you were wrong. I didn't think it would work for me, but it did. So that I'll never get tired of those messages ever. Of, I'm not so stressed now. I can have some time off with my family. I've got money to pay the bills. Like, that just never, ever gets old.
No, it doesn't. And I guess you've answered the question, which is, does profit first work in the land down under?
It certainly does. And this is something that I find one of the biggest things that I hear from people is that won't work for me. That won't work for my business because, and they rattle off all these reasons. And often it's because they have assumed that it's not going to work before actually finding out how it works. So from a profit first perspective, as Mike wrote the book, obviously he's American, so it's based very much around your American system. So there are some slight changes for us here in Australia. So we have what's called a GST, so a goods and services tax. So that is the same across all states, so that doesn't vary. And then some of our tax is a little bit different to how it is over there. And then obviously I've adapted it slightly to work best with my tradies. But that's the beauty of Profit First. The framework, you can take that framework and tweak it slightly to any country, to any niche, to any small business, big business, medium business. And if there's one thing I wish that I could get out to everybody is that the framework will work. You just have to give it a go and be willing to make some slight changes so it works for you. Because it's very rarely, like even if we go back to the bookkeeping example, everybody doesn't use the exact same bookkeeping system the exact same way. It is the framework and then we adapt it slightly. They all work for us. We just have to make sure that we've made the right adjustments. And that's what I did with Profit First here in Australia. And it as I said, it never gets old, those messages. And particularly for us now, coming into Christmas, a lot of construction closes down over December, January for somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks. And then come end of Jan, Feb, there's a lull in their cash flow and everyone has issues because they haven't got any money in. So I love this time of year for two reasons. Firstly, lots of people realise they need help and they reach out. And secondly, those who have already gotten help rave about it. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is the first Christmas we've had where we're not worrying about, am I going to be able to pay my bills come January because I've got money set aside. So it makes such a difference.
That must be cultural. Why do they shut down for 2 to 4 weeks around this time of year? This
is our summer. So we don't have a big summer. Many businesses in America have a bit of a break over your summer. So this is our summertime. Typically, years ago, they'd shut down for a full month. Construction would just stop for a month. That's not so much the case now, and partly from a cash flow perspective, but also because the trades are just booming at the moment over here. There's too much work. So everybody's trying to get everything done by their deadlines. But yeah, typically it's our summer, so the weather's beautiful. Our kids have a 6-week school holiday break over this period. So it's typically the time that you would have time off to have, spend Christmas, New Year's, and some time with the kids and the family. We also here, for our employees are entitled to 4 weeks holidays a year. So quite often, particularly in construction, they will have the bulk of that over this period of time because it slows down a little bit. So we get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. So
these are concepts that are a little foreign to our American people. Enjoying time off, living life.
And I will say we aren't, some of us are better at that than others. There is definitely a mindset, particularly around small business owners, that we need to work a lot of hours. We need to work. We need to not have very many holidays. We need to sort of work ourselves into the ground to be able to get by. And all my clients, I'm like, no, that's not how we work. We are aiming towards taking a regular pay so you know exactly what you're getting, making sure you're taking your profit, making sure that you are actually having time off work. And, I've got many clients that I work with, their goal is to work 4 days a week and they want to spend a day at home with the kids because a lot of them have younger children. All totally possible, particularly when we use Profit First. That makes it very easy. So for me, I'm just trying to change that attitude around. I'm self-employed. I need to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week and never take a holiday. I'm like, no.
Nope. I'm with you. I don't believe in that either.
No. And it's just, I find a mind shift change, but also when you've got money in the bank, because you're running Profit First, it makes it much easier to stop doing the hours, because often we're not efficient. We're just doing the hours and we're actually not being very productive. So part of what I do with clients is to step them back from that.
That makes total sense. Any favorite client success stories?
Ooh. There are so, like, they range from single man operator who, no children, no wife and so on, but can now work. He's Monday to Friday and do his sports that he loves, all the way through to bigger businesses with husband and wife teams and multiple children in the family who, I've got one at the moment who he has 3 boys and they have some health issues and he's going to be able to take Wednesdays off work now so he and his wife can be home together. So she's not under so much stress being home because the boys they're like 7 and under. So he's going to have a day at home in the middle of the week to break that week up for her and spend that extra time with the family. So he's going to be working 4 days a week rather than 5 and still actually be more profitable than he was before we started working together. So there's just story after story after story. And the one thing that is common is they all say to me, I never thought this was possible. And that's what holds people back because they don't think that could ever be a reality. So they often don't go searching for a solution for it because they just don't think it's possible. So yeah, it's always nice to be able to show them what is possible and that it's actually not as difficult as they think. And I always say to them, it's not easy, but you do the work to start with and you'll absolutely get those rewards pretty quickly.
And that's one of the things my clients tell me. They're like, we've never had so much cash. It is definitely, it just changes the way they look at things and the way they behave. And it's wonderful. So your tradies, which you wrote the book Profit First for Tradies, are basically our contractors. As
Yes.
you look at that class of business, is there anything unique about it that you've had to customize with Profit First to make it work for that niche?
I think for us here in Australia, around the tax is where the biggest change was, because what I found with my tradies is they were in debt to the ATO, which is our Australian tax office, the government. So they were in debt to them because they hadn't put money aside for their various taxes. And so then what happens is they get a couple of years down the line in business and then the ATO catches up with them and says, actually, now we want you to repay this. You need to go on a payment plan, and then cash gets very tight because they weren't putting money aside for it. Now they have to, plus they need to put money aside for what they're going to earn, and it makes it very difficult for them. The other area where they get themselves in trouble is, so we have compulsory superannuation, like your 401k. So our employers have to pay that for their employees. And again, it's something that they've been able to get away with not paying and not get into trouble for. But then what happens again, the ATO figures it out and says, hello, you need to pay us this ridiculous amount of money that you haven't paid for the last few years. And what I found with Profit First is because we allow for all those things, it makes it much easier for them to put it aside, because something as simple as putting aside 10% for GST, that's a really easy calculation for them. And that's just one step closer for them to not have a massive tax bill. So that's probably been one of the easiest, but also most complicated from their point of view, but easiest problem to solve. And then once they get those two things under control, as you say, the cash just starts to build up. You can see it on their faces when they, it comes to a quarterly profit distribution. The amount of times I get a message saying, I think we've done this wrong. I've got some money left over in the bank account after I've paid these things. It's like, no, that's correct, because we've kept extra aside for, your taxes and so on. But again, it's just such a great framework where you can make those changes and those, adapt to whatever. So we say niche, that there is.
We run into the same issues here on sales tax. So depending on what they're doing, we do collect sales tax. And the reality is it's added on top of the sales price. And so it's definitely not your money. And you definitely need to put it aside. Our accountants are usually pretty good about forcing them to do that. But they don't always put aside money for all the other taxes that come up. And people don't realize how many different taxes there are. And when you start adding it up and you start to be profitable, it becomes pretty substantial. And then if they get stuck with the IRS, then they have to come up with an agreement and they pay it back. And yeah, we have the same problems.
and that's the thing. And it's just, I find the clients' whole happiness changes when they know that they've got money aside for their taxes. Like everything else seems to become easier because they know that they're not going to be in trouble with the ATO in our case. And that's...
And so here we don't do it on a percentage basis for income taxes. It's based on what your profit is. The problem is a lot of small businesses don't know what their profit is until the year after when tax time comes, and then they get a surprise because it surely doesn't match the cash in the bank. And a lot of them freak out. And that's one of the biggest things I've heard as they feel confident at tax time that whatever the tax bill is, they can stroke a check, they're not freaking out, and they're able to pay the bill. And so for them, it's the same concept. It really helps them to just handle that. And they make sure that they get paid because too often they're the last ones to pay themselves.
Yes.
So making sure that we do that up front and then appropriately spending within the business. And then it becomes fun. And when you have a fun business that's profitable, you want to keep it, enjoy it. And
everything becomes easier. And that's what I say to my clients. Like, I get really excited at the initial sort of sessions that we have. And I always say to my clients, I know I may seem a little bit too excited for this point in time, but I know what the end goal looks like for you. I know where your business is going to be, and that's what I'm excited about. They're still stuck in the, oh my gosh, we've got tax debt and we've got all these things and how are we going to get out of this? I said, but I know what that looks like, and that just makes me so happy. Like, it's just so exciting for them. And I say to my clients, the first, 2 to 3 months, I'm like, you may not like me very much because we're going to like unpick and uncover everything in your business that isn't working. And then we're going to put it back together using the Profit First framework. And then you'll start to like me again. And they always sort of giggle. And then when they get through it, I always get a comment to say, yeah, there were times there when we were like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. This is really hard. because it's new to them. But we all come out on the other side much, much better businesses for it.
What do you usually find is broken in the business that you uncover through Profit First?
Usually multiple things. So often my clients will come to me initially because they say, I've got a cash flow problem. So, okay, great. But what's causing that cash flow problem? So for many of my guys and girls, it is overspending. So they have no real idea of what is actually being spent. It's money in, money out, no real concept. Often they're not charging enough. So we do an exercise with them to work out. The first exercise I do when they have a team, when they have staff, is that we work out what their charge out rate for that staff member is, and what they need to charge and what they are charging is always very, very different. And the third thing would probably be that they're not paying themselves. It goes one or two ways. They're not paying themselves, and that ties in with the massive expenses coming out because they're not taking a wage, but they're paying for everything personally out of the business. Or on the other hand, they're taking a really big wage from the business and leaving the business high and dry because it's got no cash left. So I always say, we need to make the business work for you. So what do you need from the business? Whether that is sustainable now or not, that's what our goal is going to be. But we just need to get clear on actually what your expenses are personally in business, what you're getting, what your staff are actually costing you, and are you charging them outright? And then make sure that, your wages can be whatever it needs to be. And that's why I say to clients, if it needs to be $10,000 a week, we've got some work to do, but we need to know what that figure is. And I find once you start working on one thing, then you start uncovering other parts of the business, because not always is the business owner upfront and honest with information. So often it's once we start working on something, other things will come to the forefront.
Well, a lot of times they just forget.
Yeah, and they don't. This is not their specialty. They don't often connect that this is a problem and that is also a problem, because they're so focused on whatever it may be over here, they actually can't see anything else. And that's probably one of my most enjoyable parts, is getting into the business and finding everything that's broken. And I always say to my clients, it doesn't always look great, but it looks great because we can then fix it. We know what's broken and then we can get about fixing it. I always tell my clients, I'm not going to spend too much time on looking backwards and worrying about what you should have, could have, would have done. I'm like, that doesn't actually change anything. What I'm excited about is finding those things that are wrong and fixing them.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, we can learn from some mistakes that we've done in the past, but we're not going to dwell on those, because whilst we're dwelling on them, we're wasting time and energy when we could be fixing them. So let's just forward focus and fix.
And we can't do anything about the past. No. And I think this is why they struggle with their bookkeepers and the accountants, because they're always looking in the rearview mirror, where we're focused on the road ahead. How do we fix problems going forward? How do we make money tomorrow? And how do we build the business that you enjoy and love and have fun working with?
Exactly. And as you say, with bookkeepers and accountants, they absolutely have a role and they need to do that role. But it is very delayed, the information. Like you mentioned before, we have it here too. Our financial year ends on 30th of June. Often businesses aren't doing their taxes until March the following year. So they've got, they're 3/4 of a way through the next financial year before they're getting any information on that previous year. And then by the time they get that back, they've got a very short space of time to make any corrections. And in many cases, you can actually kind of get away without doing your taxes for a year or two. and kind of fly under the radar with the ATO. So then that makes it even worse. You're 2 years down the track looking back, and it makes it very difficult for the business owner to feel like they have any control, because it is so looking back in the past rather than forward. So obviously I encourage my clients to get their taxes done very soon after the financial year finishes, so we can tie that all up, get that done and move forward. But again, it's not typically, that's not the norm. The norm is to wait till March, do it at the last minute, get the surprise tax bill, go, oh, what am I going to do with this? Yeah.
I guess it doesn't matter where in the world you are. We all behave the same as humans.
And that is the thing. And that, I think, is something that I love about Profit First and the framework is we like to think that, business owners here in Australia are different to those in America, that are different to other countries and so on. In fact, we're not, because we are all human. We are all very, very similar, which is why the framework works so well, because we are so similar.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Anything else that you'd like to share with the audience today?
If you have Profit First in your bookcase, or you've bought it on audio and you haven't listened to it, or you've got partway through, I highly recommend you finish it, listening to it, reading it, seek out a Profit First professional and just have an initial chat with them to see what you can do in your business, because I hear so often, I wish I did this sooner. And like we were just mentioning, we can't go back and change the past. And if I could do one thing, it would be to encourage everybody to do it sooner. Just have that initial chat with a Profit First professional and see if it works for you, or see how it works for you. It will work. Absolutely, it will work for you. But just pick up that book, listen to the audio, and just do something about it. Don't be like me and take a few goes, because my business would be even in a completely different place if I had started when I picked that book up initially. That
is so true. If people would like to find out more about you and your business, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yes, certainly. So my website is profitfirstfortradies.com.au. If you're on Facebook, I also have a group, which is Profit First for Tradies group. And then you can, join the group, email me, message me. Even if you're in a different country, it actually doesn't matter, because as Profit First professionals around the world, we are all connected. So if somebody reaches out to me and asks something specific about, if they're in the States or something like that, I can always put you in touch with somebody who would be better. I do have a lot of clients actually who are who have moved to Australia, or were moving to Australia before lockdown. Just reach out.
And we are a big happy family. We all work together and help each other and support. And that is what is awesome about Profit First and the way we do business. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
As we started with, the framework for Profit First always works. Just adapt it to your needs. Also, the Profit First family is just that. We all love and help each other for our goal, which is to end entrepreneurial poverty. Small business is the backbone of every country. And today, more than ever, because of COVID and the Great Resignation, more and more small businesses are being started. They should be profitable. You deserve to get paid. Let's put systems in place to ensure that happens for you. We share all our secrets right here, and you can always email questions. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer, because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.